Assalamu alaikum dear students. Hope you all are fine. I am Aksa Usman, your instructor for Comedy of Manner from University of Education, DG Khan campus. In today's lecture, we will discuss remaining part of Pygmalion Act 4. Now we will discuss Pygmalion Act 4, its remaining part. In our previous lecture, we discussed first half of the Act 4 Pygmalion by Judge Bernard Shaw. Before starting the remaining part, let's discuss the previous events in few minutes. That part was very important in regard of character analysis of three major characters, Professor Higgins, Colonel Pickering, and Eliza Doolittle. First of all, Professor Higgins, who seems to be a proud, aggressive, and an ill-tempered person due to his educational background and his professional achievements. He has no affections or sympathies towards Eliza, and he is too much careless about her feelings and about her future, as he considers her as an experiment or a non-living object. And next one is Colonel Pickering. From start of the text till end, he proves to be a flat character and total in the contrast of Professor Higgins. He shows his affection and kind behavior towards Eliza and constantly appreciates the efforts and achievements of Eliza in the transformation process. And in fact, he is wonderful at the transformation of Eliza, which was out of their expectations. He is really impressed by her learning and her transformation. And another major character is Eliza Doolittle, who was a flower selling girl, and now she is transformed into a well-educated and a well-mannered lady. And here she also proves to be a round character, as in her behavior there seems to be a sudden change in Act 4. In previous act, we clearly observe in her behavior that her affections towards Professor Higgins was so much clear, but in this act, due to his constant bad behavior, her affection and her soft nature shifted towards aggressive and an angry situation. So now we start remaining part of Act 4. As we know from the previous part of the text that in the behavior of Professor Higgins there comes some kind of changes, that he has a soft corner for Eliza at the end, and then he suggests Eliza to marry with someone to secure her future, and he offers her to take rest and say her prayers, so may she feel comfortable and easy. And now in the further, let's start the text. Eliza again looks at him, speechless, and doesn't stir. The look is quite lost on him. He eats his apple with a dreamy expression of happiness, as it is quite a good one. Here the same behavior of Professor Higgins is clearly mentioned, that in spite of all that serious kind of conversation, he continuously doing his own previous work as he is eating his apple, and he is quite happy on the success of his project or his experiment, and he has no care or no worries about the behavior or reaction of Eliza Doolittle. Higgins. A genial afterthought occurring to him. I dare say my mother could find some chap or other who could do very well. Here in this dialogue, he continues his suggestion towards Eliza that she should After that, she should marry with someone, and he offers his mother to find her someone to be married. And now next, Eliza. We were above that at the corner of Tottenham Court Road. Higgins, what do you mean? Lisa, I sold flour. I didn't sell myself. Now you have made me a lady of me. I'm not fit to sell anything else. I wish you would left me where you found me. Here on the statement of Professor Higgins, Eliza again gave a harsh comment or a harsh reply as by saying, I didn't sell myself. Here the dialogues or the suggestions from the Professor Higgins indicates a traditional female role of Victorian society, that the only way to get out of all that situation for ladies is only to get married with a healthy person. And now Eliza gave a harsh reaction on this statement, that she considered this kind of marriage as a prostitution, and she says that I didn't sell myself. Uh, she con she considered such kind of marriage as a business deal, or selling of herself, as when she recalls her past, she sells flour, but now after transformation, she is not able to continue her previous job or selling the flour. Higgins, slinging the core of the apple decisively into a grate. Tosh, Eliza, don't you insult human relation by dragging all this cant about buying and selling into it. You need not marry the fellow if you don't like him. Here, Professor Higgins is not agree with the statement of Eliza about this kind of marriage or the relationship, and he replies that her moral judgment against the marriage is total unfair. And he says that if she doesn't want to marry, then it's her choice. Lisa, what else am I to do? Higgins, oh, lot of things. What about your old idea of a florist shop? Pickering could set up you in one. He has a lot of money. Chunkling, he will have to pay for all those togs you have been wearing today. And then with the hire of the jewelry, will make a big hole in 200 pounds. Why 6 months ago you would have thought it the millennium to have a flower shop of your own. Come, you will be all right. I must clear off the bed. I am devilish sleepy. By the way, I came down for something. I forget what it was. Here from this dialogue of Professor Higgins, it is clear the materialistic approach of the Professor Higgins, that he still doesn't care of the feelings and emotions of the Eliza, but for him these materialistic things have much more value, like dressing, which is obviously expensive, and as well as the jewelry. Um, And another thing is clear from this dialogue, that he has no place for the Eliza in his life, as he offers Colonel Pickering to support her financially instead of himself. His careless nature is clearly shown by in the last line, that I came down for something, I forget what it was. He is still curious and worried about his slippers instead of Eliza, who has shared her emotions and her problems or her insecurities about her future. Lisa, your slippers. In this situation, even Eliza is so much angry at him, but um, she molds herself and reminds him that he was finding his slippers. Higgins. Oh, yes, of course. You shied them at me. He picks them up and is going out when she rises and speaks to him. Lisa, before you go, sir. Higgins, dropping the slippers in his surprise at her calling him sir. Eh, Lisa, do my clothes belong to me or to Colonel Pickering? Here, Eliza inquires about her dressing, to whom it belongs, uh, and who is the owner of this dress which they hire for their party for today's party. That who is the owner? Is the owner is Eliza or the Colonel Pickering, and who paid for it? Higgins, coming back into the room as if her question were very climax of the unreason. What the devil use would they be to Pickering? Higgins is surprised at the question of the Eliza that how could be they belong to Colonel Pickering. Lisa, he might want them for the next girl you pick up to the experiment on. Here from this dialogue, the angry statement is given by Eliza again that she is angry by saying herself as an experiment, and these dresses could be helpful for another girl that they might choose for their next experiment. Here she returns back the word said by Professor Higgins experiment to him, which was really shocking for him as he was not expecting such kind of answer from Eliza Doolittle. Lisa, I don't want to hear anything more about that. All I want to know is whether anything belongs to me. My own clothes were burnt. Here from this dialogue, it is clear that Eliza has not forgotten her roots in the poverty, and she is still remember that her old clothes that were burnt and her new cloth doesn't match with her um, economic situation, and all these were given by either from Professor Higgins or the Colonel Pickering. Higgins. But what does it matter? Why need you start bothering about that in the middle of the night? Lisa, I want to know what I may take away with me. I don't want to be accused of stealing. And here, self-dependent nature of the Eliza Doolittle is shown through her dialogue that she don't want to take this dress with her, and as she denies to own this dress, and she didn't want to be accused as a thief or to stealing these things, and her statement really hurts Higgin, now deeply wounded. Stealing? You shouldn't have said that, Eliza. That shows a want of feeling. Now from the previous dialogues, it is clear that there was a sudden shift in the behavior and the emotions of the Professor Higgins, and he changes her tone into a soft way while talking with Eliza, while Eliza is talking with him in the same tone in a angry mood. And her word stealing and accused for the stealing really hurts Professor Higgins, and he did not expect from her for such kind of words or such kind of statements. Unconsciously, Professor Higgins recalls are the emotional types of behavior from Eliza Doolittle, and here he was not expecting such emotionless statement. So he reminds her that her dialogue shows a want of feeling. Lisa, I'm sorry, I am only a common, ignorant girl, and in my station I have to be careful. There can't be any feelings between the like of you and the like of me. Please, will you tell me what belong to me and what doesn't? Eliza, in the same tone, here again mention her Professor Higgins about her previous economical situation and her social values, that She belongs to a lower class background, and she was not in such a condition that she could hire such expensive kind of dresses and jewelry. Now she want to confirm that which things should be belong to her, and what should not. Higgins, very sucky. You may take the whole damned houseful if you like. Expect the jewels. They are hired. Will they satisfy you? He turns on his heels, and he is about to go in the extreme dudgeon. Lisa, drinking in his emotions like nectar and nagging him to provoke a further supply. Stop, please. She takes off her jewelry. Will you take these to your room and keep them safe? I don't want to run the risk of their being missing. And from here it is clear that when she continuously asks from Professor Higgins about the ownership of the things of her dresses and jewelry, then Professor Higgins reminds Eliza Doolittle that that she is permitted to take anything with her, but as regard to jewelry, she can't take with her, as they are hired and they have to return back from them. And now Eliza continues her previous behavior, and she pushes her advantage. She takes off all her jewelry and hands over to him for the safe custody. And as she has already said that she don't want to be accused of stealing, so in that flow of emotions, she returns all that jewelry to Professor Higgins. Higgins, furious, hand them over. She puts them into his hand. If this belongs to me instead to the jeweler, I had rammed them down to your ungrateful throat. He perfectionly thrusts them into his pockets, unconsciously decorating himself with the protruding end of the chains. And it is clear from that Professor Higgins is angry at the reaction of Eliza Doolittle to return the jewelry back to him, and to give him in a safe custody. And he exclaims that he would shove them drawn into her throat if they were not hired, and they would not have to be returned to the jeweler. Lisa taking a ring off. This ring is not the jeweler's. It's the one you bought me in the Brighton. I don't want it now. Higgins dashing the ring violently into the fireplace, and turns on her so threateningly that she crouches over the piano with her hands over her face and exclaims, "Don't you hit me." And this act is in fact is very important about the climax or the relationship between Professor Higgins and Eliza, that Eliza again shows another worse reaction towards Professor Higgins, that she returns back his ring which he had give her as a present on an occasion. In an angry situation, Professor Higgins throws it into the fireplace and says that it wounded his heart. Here Eliza in such a mental distress situation that she accused Professor Higgins that he is hitting him. Higgins, hit you, you infamous creature? How dare you accuse me of such a thing? If it is you who have hit me, you have wounded me to the heart. Professor Higgins was not expecting such kind of reaction again, that she could return back his present to him, and he denies of her accused of hitting herself. And next one is Eliza. Lisa, thrilling with hidden joy. I am glad. I have got a little off my back. Anyhow, Higgins, with dignity in his finest professional style, you have caused me to lose at my temper, a thing that has hardly ever happened to me before. I prefer to say nothing more tonight. I'm going to bed. By saying these lines, Professor Higgins angrily leaves the room in very angry situation, and Eliza here looks satisfied um, by upsetting Professor Higgins. Here, Professor Higgins appeared to be a very different person, as in earlier part he was considered as an unemotional person or a qualified and academic person who has no emotion or feelings towards other people's, but here Professor Higgins finally appeared to have feelings as well. Here we may analyze them, both of them, Professor Higgins and Eliza, and their relationship with each other, that it finally explodes. It reveals that they both have a deeper feeling for each other, and Professor Higgins get hurt when she returns back his ring and throw on him, as a ring is being suggested as a promise of marriage. So Professor Higgins was not expecting of the disapproval of such kind of hidden proposal. Lisa, you would better leave a note for Mrs. Pierce about the coffee, for she would not be told by me. Here it is shown in this dialogue that Eliza is so much in the anger situation that she totally forgets all kind of ethical values, and refuses his request to remind Mrs. Pierce about coffee, and she denies that she will not tell Mrs. Pierce anything about the coffee, and Professor Higgins have to do it himself. Higgins firmly, damn Mrs. Pierce, and damn the coffee, and damn you, and damn and damn my own folly in having lavished my hard-earned knowledge and the treasure of my regard and intimacy on a heartless gutter snipe. He goes out with impressive decorum and spoil it by slamming the door savagely. Here from this dialogue of Professor Higgins, it is clear that he has no importance of Mrs. Pierce or of the coffee, and of himself also, or about his knowledge, but he is so much hurted by the reactions constantly given by Eliza Doolittle, and he leaves the room in an angry mood. Eliza smiles as of for the first time, expresses her feeling by a wild pantomime in which an imitation of Higgins exists, is confused with her own triumph, and finally goes down to her knees on her hurt rug to look for the ring. Here, by the reaction of the Eliza, and her next action after throwing the ring by Professor Higgins at her, Eliza action remind her real dilemma that Eliza is facing from the first act till now. She has gotten Professor Higgins angry, and now she begins to search ring again. This kind of juxtaposition demonstrates that she still has a deep feeling for Professor Higgins, and all those reactions which she gave to Professor Higgins in this act was in the result of the harsh kind of statements by Professor Higgins and Professor Higgins. It is clearly observed from these last lines that in her revenge, although Eliza consciously hurt Professor Higgins, but still she is emotionally attached with him. And students, it was all about Act 4 Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. And after reading the text and its explanation, Now we are able to give give our critical comments on Act 4. That this Act 4 is the end of the educational phase of Eliza, and it obviously is a start of her future, her career. And next, here it is clearly mentioned the relationship between Professor Higgins and Eliza Doolittle, and if we analyze it, this text, then there we find a lot of humorous element from the dialogues of Professor Higgins, and we may say that this scene marks an end on the phase of education of Eliza, and it looks forward to the next phase, which is her career. As Professor Higgins has suggested Eliza Doolittle to with different kind of suggestions, like she could marry with a rich person, or she could open her flower shop again. And as regard to George Bernard Shaw, he has called this play a romantic kind of play, as well a play of comedy. And this kind of this element of romance is provided not in Professor Higgins and Eliza as it was expected till from act first, second, and third, and as well as in the Act 4. But in this Act 4, relationship of Professor Higgins and Eliza was ended after a harsh views about each other, and it's a start of a new journey of the relationship between Eliza Doolittle and Freddie. Eliza here is no doubt that she is the creation of Professor Higgins, and but she would not marry her creator, as in the classical legend, a real Pygmalion, a Greek myth. But she will marry a young, handsome person, Freddie, who is her lover. Thus, the central problem of this play, it would be solved at the end of the play, this act, that what a person should do when he or she has no longer belong to her own rank or the status of their life, and here status or the background of Eliza Doolittle is now completely shifted into a different phase. And now it's a major question for Eliza Doolittle, that what she will do in her future, as now she is no more a flower selling girl. She is transformed into a well-educated, well-mannered lady, and her previous profession doesn't match with her now current situation. And through the marriage of the Eliza and Freddie and Mrs. Higgins, they will provide the young lover to be a chance of her help and her guidance. This and as regard to the humorous element, this Act 4 is not lacking in the humor. Also, the manner in which Higgins gave his expression to his annoyance of as he assumes as the manner in which he gives expression to it on the earlier occasion, different parties and invitations which they by which they were invited at different time at different parties. So he gave his comments about the social gathering and about different people, as well as Eliza Doolittle. Indeed, he irritates by his comments Eliza Doolittle, which were the causes of the change of her behavior towards Professor Higgins. Now we will discuss some major themes which are clearly mentioned in this Act 4, which are social class and manners. Second one is appearance and identity. Third one is education and intelligence. Fourth one is femininity and gender role. And at the end, language and speech. First of all, we will discuss about social class and manners. As this play was written in 1992, the early 20th century, and we know that which was the end of the Victorian period in England. So that period was characterized by different kind of rigid social hierarchies and social manners, and it was also a beginning of the decline as a social mobility became increasingly possible, and some kind of wealthy and high class characters which were concerned to maintain such kind of social distinction or social differences, and there was a clear visible difference between rich and the poor. For example, different families like Mrs. Hills and Mrs. Higgins, and as well as Eliza Doolittle and his father, and also talk about Freddie. As in this act, Professor Higgins suggests Eliza to marry not Freddie, but with any person of a person who belongs to a high family or a high social class. So maybe the most important way in which these distinctions of the social classes are enforced is throughout the manners, through the manners are the different codes of behaviors. And this play shows that the belief of the one social class and manner are natural. It is proved false in here in this act 4, and Eliza's transformation is the best example of this concept that manners could not be adopted, but Eliza proved that manners and nobility can also be learned. So one's class is formed through performance and also learning the act of the different in a different ways. So we may say that it's all a matter of habits, and there is no right or wrong in it. So good or bad manner are just a matter of cultural habit. There is also an ironical situation in this play that lower class characters sometimes they often behave in a better way as compared to high class people, and it is clearly observed in the character of Mr. Doolittle and also in the character of Mrs. Pierce. So we may say that there is no natural or no inherent connection between social class and correct or well organized or well accepted manners from the, and despite of all these social rigidities in the play Pygmalion, Eliza and her father Mr. Doolittle show the possibility of such kind of social class mobility, as not only Eliza is transformed into a noble and a well-mannered lady, but also his father, who also inherit a sufficient amount of money from a rich American family. And by giving the money to Mr. Doolittle, they allow Mr. Doolittle to become a middle class person. So here the dialogue of Colonel Pickering here, it is clearly being observed as a right thing that there are some fool people who assume that style comes by nature to people in their position, and this thing is proved wrong through the character of Eliza Doolittle. Another prominent theme in this play is appearance and identity, as this play explores the social identity, which is not only formed through the pattern of speech, but also the physical appearance of someone's. Much like the speech, physical appearance also signals their social class, and it also dominates the person from each other. As in the Act 1 opening scene, uh, people from the different walks of life and from different social classes, and they are observed by Professor Higgins, and through their accent or their appearance or their even by their shoes, Professor Higgins note them in his notebook, and then after that, his observation, he tells that from which kind of society, which kind of place or social class these people belongs to. So we may say that this appearance also belongs to the identity of the people. As Pickering comments in this act that many noble people believe that one's appearance displays one's natural identity and character. They think that style comes by nature to the people in their position. So similarly, at the end of the play, Higgins tells Eliza that he can't change his nature. But by the importance of this, the appearances in the play, it reveals that identity sometime offer changes by changing their appearance, and it prove true in the character of Eliza Doolittle. And this kind of identity, it may be performed or put on like a costume or a dress, as Eliza did it very well. Eliza, who is the most obvious example of this, and who adopt high social class manners and get a appearance or like a duchess, and she successfully win Higgins bid for him, and she is successful in making fool different people, so they were able to assume her that she belongs to a noble background or she is a duchess, as it was possible only by by the changing of her appearance. So we another example of Eliza is from the previous acts, is that from after the complete transformation of Eliza, his own father could not recognize her just because of the changing of her clothes. And when she changed her accent as well, then all the people from other societies and from all other backgrounds, they were not able to recognize her that she was once a flower girl. As this play moves around two major characters who were highly educated and intelligent kind of people, uh, which are Professor Higgins and Cloner Pickering. They are well known for their academic achievements and their professional careers, and Shah gave the sense of their intellectual wits against others like Eliza. And in the early part of the play, Eliza, who was confused by Higgins' academic language, as her accent, as the accent of Professor Higgins was unfamiliar and a new thing for Eliza, so she couldn't understand his accent or his way of talking, and she thinks that he's a spy who is following him, or who is that who is following Eliza and who is observing her. And then intelligence and education, it is also revealed in the character of Eliza, who turns to be a quick learner, and she proves a best student of Professor Higgins, who in a very short time transformed herself into a well educated and a well mannered lady. So here we may say that Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering, they appear to be the play's two most educated, intelligent character, but all other different character like Alfred and Mr. Doolittle, as well as Eliza Doolittle, they also exemplify as different form of intelligence and cleverness in their character. So we may say that there are different kind of levels of intelligence, and every person possesses such kind of levels in themselves. And this play also shows some kind of drawbacks of the Higgins over intellectual character, or learning that Higgins most of time approaches different people with their kind of academic detachment, and he observes them and he treats them according to their educational background and their intelligence level. So he sees everyone as a subject, or as a non-living person. Same he did with Eliza Doolittle, as he take her as a project and calls again and again her as his experiment. So he doesn't concern with the feelings of the other people's. One see this especially within when in which manner he treats Eliza Doolittle. and he hurts her and neglects her again and again as a person, and he doesn't take into consideration of her self-respect. So the Higgins lacks the basic sympathies and different kind of emotional attachment with other peoples due to his overconfidence on his education and intelligence level. And now we will discuss another major prominent theme of femininity and the gender roles in this whole play, as well as in the Act 4. As we already know that the title of this play is taken from the Greek myth Pygmalion. In that story, Pygmalion, who was that was a statue of a woman, and a person makes a statue of his ideal woman. So that statue was so much beautiful that he falls in love with it, and after his prayers, that statue comes into life. So by titling this play after that story, Shaw calls the attention of this reader to the most prominent theme, femininity and the gender roles. And as the Pygmalion, as a real Pygmalion from the Greek myth, was an ideal woman of his creator. Similarly, in this play by George Bernard Shaw, Professor Higgins and Pickering molds Eliza Doolittle into their ideal kind of lady. Through the character of Professor Higgins and Pickering, Shaw wants to draw our attention towards the unrealistic and unnatural approach and expectation of the society which they demand from women. And a moral lesson behind that play was that Pygmalion's perfect woman that only be attained by a artificial construct that was only a statue. Similarly, the ideal lady of a British society or a Victorian society in the world of which Shaw tried to portray in his play, it is a kind of fake, only a role of Eliza that must learn to play. So the Bernard Shaw explored the unrealistic ideals of feminism or feminine approaches, that different kind of ideals which are demanded by a society, like in the character of Eliza, who has to be coached, has to be disciplined, and was taught, and she was pretend to be the someone rather than she was really one. So from one point of view, it was all about the ideal real women and the demand of their society, and this play also explore another gender role toward ladies or towards female characters, and Mrs. Pierce and Mrs. Higgins were the examples of such kind of characters who were confined to their household matters. Both ladies play an important role in the whole play. Mrs. Pierce, who controls the all household affairs and matters of Professor Higgins, and she constantly reminds him of his own manners. And the role of the Mrs. Pickering is revealed in the last act of the play, that when Eliza leaves Professor Higgins and Pickering, and Mrs. Higgins helps resolve all the conflicts between them at the plays and at the end of the play. So these two characters demonstrate that how women can play a supportive role in the Victorian society. This play also throws a light on the such kind of a serious kind of social issue, like the social rights of female characters, that is the choice of their marriage and the selection of their life partner, as for example in the act 5, at the end of the play, Eliza, who have to choose between Professor Higgins, or live with her father, or to marry with Freddie. In any case of her selection, her future can only be under the control of a man of some sort, some kind of person, either from his husband, her husband, or her father. She has to be depend on them. She tells Higgins that she desires an independent life, and she is a strong character, and she wants to lead her, and she wants to promote herself in not only economical way but also in a social values. So we may say that Eliza is the best example that she would take even greater transformation of this society in itself, that in the 20th century, for the women like Eliza, that they have the real independence. And at the end we will discuss about language and speech, which is also a prominent theme of this play, that in this play Bernard Shaw explored the different aspects of the language in a variety of different ways. Here Professor Higgins and Pickering, who study linguistics and phonetics, in the starting of this play in Act 4, they take different kind of observation from different walks of the people, and they make notes from different background of the people on the basis of their speech. And similarly in the Act 3, we came to know that the importance of the proper small talk in social situation. So this play reveal on the importance and the power of the language, as Eliza, who is the most prominent example of such kind of transformation of her accent into a well-educated background. So she is simply by calling she is simply called by the name of the Miss Doolittle, while Higgins insults her again and again, as he knows her background and her speech and language, and her as well as her previous accent. And this play is very interesting from the start to the end, as it shows the connection between the person's speech and their identity. Through their speech and their language, their accent, or their dialects, and the use of the particular slangs, people are identified and they are classified due to their speech quality into different class groups. So when Eliza adopt the accent of a high class or educated people, then uh, she is transformed into a well-educated lady, and she is successful in deceiving the people by her behavior and her accent. Then Colonel Pickering and Professor Higgins, they were able to use the advantage of her accent by fooling different people of the high society, and they successfully passing Eliza off as a noble lady. So it was all about major themes which were dominated in Act 4. And students, it was all about the explanation and critical analysis of Act 4 Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Hope so that lecture was helpful for your understanding of the text of play. Thanks for watching. Allah Hafiz.